Welcome to Global View. Today joining us is David Pollack, that is the host of David Pollack Show with is a co-host, a famous co-host Puppet Carlson. Welcome and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. A lot of people think that me and the puppet are the same people, and he's actually a real life person, and he has his own life. It's just it's a much different puppet world. But yeah, so it's okay that people are always like, "Where's Puppet?" He's off doing puppet things. But thank you so much. I'm so excited for this show. Obviously a big fans of both you guys's, and you've been on my show, and now I get to be on your show, and so I'm really excited to be here. And congratulations on the new. It's amazing.
Thank you. You make a great duo, by the way. And
Thank you.
you're also very popular for hosting spaces on
Yeah,
X.
correct.
So you completely mastered this new wave of communication of uncensored content through both podcasts, your own show, this wonderful character, which I fell in love with the very first time I was your guest on your show. And now, what's coming next?
Well, so we haven't told anybody about this yet. And so I'll break it here on your show since you're such good friends. So I started my radio show, probably about 2 years ago. And then the radio show turned into a podcast. And then Puppet Carlson joined me on my podcast. And now we are relaunching the show to a new show that's going to be airing live at 10 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. It's going to be called Politically Uncensored. And it's going to be a late night show. We're going to be a little bit lighthearted of course, we'll talk about politics, but we're also going to talk about lifestyle, entertainment, all kinds of things. Because you know what? Like you guys, we have been working tirelessly to get Trump back into the White House. And it is very serious what we're doing. I mean, the stakes have never been higher. That being said, people are exhausted. Everybody I talk to is exhausted. And we're ramping up for another huge political season. We have America First on the ballot in a lot of different states, Florida being one of them. We're trying to defend America First in Washington. And so we need a space where we can go with a puppet and our brand new co-host, Taylor Ferber, and she is a longtime Hollywood red carpet reporter. And so she's coming on, and we're just going to have a really good time, talk about politics, but also talk about entertainment, talk about all kinds of things. We're going to cut loose in a late night show and really relax. So it's going to be a space for all of our friends to come and just relax and have a good time and still talk politics, but do it in a format that just kind of gives us a break, because this is very serious, very intense, and we need to laugh a little bit, maybe pour a glass of bourbon and kind of unwind with our good friends. And so we're really looking forward to it. I think our first show is either going to be the March 11th or the March 13th. Puppet Carlson is going under the knife. So when he emerges from this new plastic puppet, well, I guess it's not plastic surgery because he's made of cotton. So we're going to call it cotton surgery. When he emerges from cotton surgery, he's going to be an all-new man. And so we're really excited to unveil him to the world and the new Puppet 2.0. And I can't wait for you guys to join us and hang out with us too.
David, we can't wait to do that. It's going to be really amazing. Let's backtrack for a second.
Yeah.
Where did this idea of Puppet Carlson come from? Because he's infamous. You're a great friend, but you're almost like you have the symbiotic relationship with Puppet Carlson. So how did this even come about? It's so cool and unique. But who was what was the brain child behind it?
All right, so I can't give his actual identity, but
Okay.
he's actually my business partner.
Okay.
And the guy behind the puppet is a marketing genius and a very successful marketing guy. And we've partnered up to do a lot of influencer marketing and other kind of work. And we were sitting around one night and he had this idea. He's like, David, I have this great idea for a puppet that looks like Tucker Carlson. And we just were talking. I go, this is a really good idea. And we found the handle, and and the idea was that we wanted to kind of bring a little lightheartedness to politics. We wanted to do something different. Everybody has a podcast. Everybody's talking politics, and it's good. I mean, there's a lot of really important voices. But at the end of the day, we wanted to do it in a way that maybe attracted a different audience. And we weren't sure where it was going to go, if we were going to try to attract a younger audience and maybe get kids interested in politics, or if he was going to be a little edgy. It turned out he turned into an edgy puppet, so it's not really appropriate for kids all the time. And it really turned into a life of its own. It's funny though, because some people love the puppet, some people really don't like the puppet. And so if we're interviewing like DC people, like serious DC folks, they're like, what is up with this puppet? But if we're interviewing other people, they're like, oh, this puppet is great. So you never know how it's going to go. But we've brought him to public events. He was at CPAC and a big hit there, and so people are starting to like. I think one day everybody's going to know the Puppet Carlson, and he'll be more famous than me easily. And it just is what it is when you're a puppet with personality. I call him the plush patriot. You know, destiny is his fame, and basically I'll just be playing second fiddle to him soon, I have a feeling.
As someone who has been both on the real Tucker show and have been interviewed by Tucker Carlson multiple times and by the puppet, I think once,
Yeah.
I would like to see this happening, like an interview between Tucker and the puppet. And also, I know he's getting ready for the occasion, becoming more beautiful, cotton surgery. I look forward to see him in his new version. But what would puppet ask Tucker if you had the chance to?
Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
Well, the idea when we launched Politically Uncensored, which is the name of this new show, and it is also a news site that we're getting ready to really put a lot of content into. The idea was we were wanted to showcase the alternative voices in media because, as we know and as we talk about all the time, legacy media has controlled the narrative for so long and only given voices to those they deem credible in the media space. And there's a lot of really credible people, and you see people who are really starting to, like the Sean Ryans of the world. I mean, there are really good alternative journalists that deserve a platform. And we launched Politically Uncensored to really be a space where alternative voices could be heard. Now, Tucker is not an alternative voice. He was on legacy media, but now he's launched the Tucker Carlson Network. Now, we joke Puppet has the Puppet Carlson Network, but he's launched the Tucker Carlson Network, and now he's basically the pioneer of alternative media. He gets more views on his platform than he ever had on Fox News. And I think in his wake, he'll inspire a lot of people to do similar work and really give people curated content for people that they trust and admire. And so I think what Puppet would ask Tucker would be, how can a Puppet Carlson stand in his much larger shoes and do something similar and bring hard-hitting, honest news to what Puppet calls the MAGA and American community? And so I think that would probably be Puppet's first question to Tucker, because I'm sure he would like to be the Puppet Carlson or the Tucker Carlson of puppets, meaning the Puppet Carlson. That's my guess. I don't know. He has a mind of his own. I don't tell him what to do or say. So you never know.
We'll have him on sometimes.
Yeah,
Exactly. David, you mentioned entertainment and keeping politics loose. Tucker Carlson is kind of an entertainer himself. I would argue he's almost more entertainer than actual journalist at this point, and that's very effective. Puppet Carlson adds the dimension of entertainment, keeping things loose. You mentioned you've been talking to people, I think you're in Florida, that are so tired of the heaviness, the despair when it comes to anything political. Why do you think people have this despair when it comes to politics?
I thought about this a lot and I've talked about it a lot. And I think it's honestly, I don't want to, I hate when I'm like, I blame the left, but I kind of blame the left because they've put so much negativity in politics where you can't even discuss it anymore. I used to say I dream of a day where we can go back to not knowing what our neighbors' politics were, where the presidential yard sign wasn't in their yard. I didn't know who they voted for, how they voted. It didn't matter. We brought each other cookies on Christmas and we helped each other if we needed something. Everything changed. And I remember in 2020, I ran for a local office in a nonpartisan seat. And I would call people and be like, hey, I'm running for office and just wanted to introduce myself and see what's on your mind. The very first question was, hey, who do you support for president? And I said, well, let's not talk about that. Can we instead talk about taxes and roads and infrastructure and your utility bills? Like, let's talk about things that matter to you, not my national, but all they wanted to know was who I voted for nationally. And as soon as I told them Trump, the conversation shut down. They couldn't support me. We've gotten to a place where you're not free to speak anymore or share your opinions. And it's really a left thing, not a right thing. And you see memes of this all the time. If you're conservative and you talk to somebody who's liberal and they're like, yeah, I disagree. You're like, okay, fine, whatever. We can disagree and we want to move on with their lives. You talk to a liberal, and if you vote for Trump or you support Trump, it's shut down. We can't talk. You're the enemy. And so I think that's what it's created such a tense environment that people are afraid to talk about politics. And that's where the tension, I think, comes from, because when you live in a world like ours, we're conservatives, and you go into the world, you have to whisper your beliefs. Unless you're at a CPAC or a Turning Point or in a room where there's other conservatives, you're careful because you don't know who's you're going to offend. You don't know who's going to throw something at you. It's a very difficult world to be in. That, and I think because the stakes are so high. I mean, George, you know firsthand how dangerous it can be just to serve President Trump. And this is, we look at all the January 6th political prisoners, the nonviolent ones especially, who had their doors kicked down in the middle of the night because they protested an election. To be conservative became dangerous. You could end up losing your freedom. So I think that's why politics has become so tense. And that's why we're looking to lighten it up a little bit. It's still very important. But man, we have to be able to laugh. And I think we can even have conversations with the left, with the puppet, and really just break down those barriers, because if, we don't have to agree with each other. But if we can't talk to each other, there's no hope for our country. We have to break through the fake news narratives that we're supposed to hate each other and find commonality so we can move forward as a country.
I believe that Trump somehow, his election has putting the world in a different place.
Yeah.
I believe him and the so-called unhinged liberals are now pretty happy about how things are going in America. I'm telling you, as someone who lives in LA, you know, we could, and George is from Chicago, so we've experienced both cities, you know, the blue states.
Yeah.
And I feel a different energy, and I also happen to meet people in the most liberal industry ever. I still have a conversation. I still enjoy a nice time. So maybe it's time that even us on the right understand that these people are gradually shifting, and there is a Trump effect. And I'm telling you, people are happy on the right, on the left about seeing things going toward a better opportunities for everybody and everything else. Besides the Oscar, which were okay, we can comment on that if you want to. But I believe we're shifting towards something different, and that is unhinged liberalism is imploding on its own.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think it's really just a very small segment of the left that's really driving, I think, the destruction of the Democrat Party, which I'm okay with as a Republican. But you know, because we had media that wasn't honest. I mean, look, before Elon bought X, you couldn't share information without being deplatformed. Still on YouTube today, you can't say certain things about vaccines. Same thing with TikTok. If you say anything about vaccines or January 6th, and it's taken down, and you're warned. So I think the problem is certain messaging broke through and certain messaging was suppressed. And so I think a lot of the unhinged left really is probably the minority of the party. And I think Democrats, by and large, a rising tide lifts all ships. And if the economy is doing better, if we're safer, if we're not going to war. I mean, look, Trump got elected by Democrats and Republicans and independents and libertarians. It wasn't just Republicans. As a matter of fact, I think if Republicans had their way, Trump wouldn't be president. So I do think that the country is more united than the radical left wants us to believe. Because if the radical left is proven to be this small segment of the Democrat Party, they lose their voice. And if they lose their voice, I think we have a lot more that we could work together on, whether it be infrastructure, whether it be bringing our soldiers home and strengthening our military here and not having so much forward deployments. There's a lot of things I think Americans can sign on for, regardless of the party. And I think that's why it's so important we do shows like this, because we have to break through these barriers and communicate with everybody.
Yeah, look, David, the Republican Party and the Democrat Party are both in a state of introspection, and they're both completely unrecognizable than they were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
For the Republican Party, that's a really good thing, because I'm a America First MAGA supporter, and I have been since the summer of 2015, after I actually had worked with people who were very establishment, even neocon type of people. So I've really seen both sides, and the first side was very ugly. The neocon vision for America, the forever wars, the endless money that's went to so many of these conflicts. And then you have an America First type of leader is just such a breath of fresh air. So the question I have is, what do you think is the future after 2028 for both the Democrat Party and the Republican Party? Do you see them staying the way they are, or do you think one or the other will change, or both will change?
That is such an excellent question. I really do believe that we are facing probably the biggest political challenge that we've ever faced, really as a party, because America First was a very difficult lift. I mean, look, Trump won. He surprised the Republicans and the Democrats in 2016. 2020, I believe Republicans had as much to do with him not getting reelected as Democrats did. And then in 2024, I think in spite of the Republicans, remember, this is a party that put Ron DeSantis up against him, Nikki Haley up against him, Chris Christie up against him. This wasn't a party that welcomed his reelection with open arms. I think they were secretly hoping that one of his indictments would stick. America First scares the GOP establishment, the GOP. We're a GNUP now. And it scares them because they're losing that historical power that they've controlled. But now these states still have very strong establishments. And I think the fight becomes, who is going to win? Are the America First principles, the MAGA principles, going to translate into local victories? We need to win this race in Florida. Byron Donalds has to win this governor's race in Florida. If Ron DeSantis is able to put his wife back in, that suppresses America First in places like Florida. And this is not just Florida. It's going to happen everywhere because the GOP is going to want to be patient and claw back the power that they once had. So to answer your question, if America First is able to really push through and win some of these elections, if Trump's able to exert his influence, and if people see the success of an America First agenda and how it helps all people, I think the future of the Democrat and Republican Party looks very much like the 2024 election. And that's people like Tulsi Gabbard, people like RFK Jr., people like Donald Trump, Democrats, Republicans, moderates, centrists, everybody working together for a common goal. That's how we succeed as America. And it really does offend the establishments and what people call the uni party. And if you look at what's happening in the EU right now, we're forming partnerships with South America and Latin America and not the EU, because the EU wants to do the same thing that the left did to Trump. They want to jail their political opponents. They want to suppress free speech, because the same thing that threatens our GOP establishment here threatens the I guess, the establishment in Europe. And so it's vital that we export this America First principle, lead by America First, show how we can win, support our partners in places like Romania and Hungary and Poland and in Argentina. And maybe we can start, Brazil can fall back into conservative control. Maybe we have influence in Venezuela. I'm confident that if we win, America First wins in 2028, I think the country is going to be in a golden age for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. David, am I wrong, or you brought in Puppet Carlson?
Yeah, so I kicked the trunk. And I said, hey, Puppet, you got to help me out here. I'm struggling to find the words. I'm having a hard time being eloquent and answering all these questions. So I said, I really need help with my puppet. So I kicked the trunk, and he's appeared for your audience so they can meet. This is the old Puppet Carlson before he goes under his plastic surgery. So this is probably the last time your audience is going to see this version of Puppet.
Puppet, welcome to Global View.
Yeah.
I have a very first question. You know, as a woman, I want to know what you're gonna change in your wonderful future. So I love you the way you are, but what's gonna be next? Which version of you?
Well, I thank you for the compliments on my appearance. Well, I was watching the Oscars last night, and I said, all of these celebrities, they've been getting this Ozempic and these lip fillers and facial Botox. And, I said, Puppet Carlson could use a little of that. And so I'm going to go in and see if I can get a little fluff and stuff and improve my appearance a little bit.
You kind of miss some lips over there, I agree.
I don't think he has any lips at all.
No, you need some, Great idea.
Yeah,
think, George?
You know what? I gotta make sure that I continue to look better than Dave.
Well, you're gonna need a lot more cotton surgery in order to look better than me, Puppet. So,
all right, Dave, don't get all excited there.
What about the Tesla? Is the Tesla still there?
Yeah, the Cybertruck. Yeah, thankfully it drives itself because my feet are a little short to reach the pedals.
Yeah. With every update, it gets a little bit safer to drive with him. He still has a temper for a puppet and gets a little bit of road rage, so he uses the horn a lot. But what do you expect? He gets frustrated. Somebody has to control his mouth.
Very rude to him. Puppet lives matters. So please do never say that is undermining tones about Puppet. Puppet, we're so happy to see you, and thanks for joining and jumping in our conversation. I had a question for you, and I did ask David because we're not with us yet. So now I repeat it to you. If you could meet Tucker, what would you like to know from him?
Wow, Tucker has interviewed so many remarkable people, and he always got his eye and ear out to find the real story and what's going on with politics. So I would probably ask him, if I had him in front of me, I said, Tucker, who is the biggest puppet in politics and who is controlling them behind the scenes? I think that's what all of us really want to know, is who is actually in control of all of these puppet globalists that are constantly trying to recreate America in the image of something that it's not.
I like that.
I like that a lot. So how are we going to make sure that America redesigns the world to our image versus what you just explained then, Puppet?
Well, I think it has to be all come from the people, because I don't think that there are people around the world that really want to see the globalists win and the world to go under a unified communist rule. I think that would be the worst thing. That would be like a prison, the entire world becoming a prison. And you know what's remarkable? When we were at CPAC, Dave, I don't know if you spoke about this before I got on, but we spoke to so many people from all over the world, especially from Europe, talking about how important it was that Trump won the election and how inspired they were and how much it impacted them personally, and also has starting a groundswell in their individual countries for the movement of making wherever they are from great again. But in this case, we were talking a lot with European leaders and parliament leaders, and they were talking about MAGA, the Make Europe Great Again movement. And I think that's critical if we're going to continue to bring back the concept of free speech all over the world and democracy. We have to start over there in Europe and make it great again too.
Puppet, talking about global leaders and who's the biggest puppet on the global scene, we've seen a disastrous meeting between Zelensky and Donald Trump just recently. And today we broke the news that finally Zelensky is ready to negotiate peace with Trump to bring peace in Ukraine. Can you comment on that as a puppet?
Well, I mean, it's not a surprise that he's all over the place, because he's torn between speaking for himself and someone speaking for him. You know, much like Dave is always trying to get and put his hand in here and speak for me. I know what it's like to be.
I do not go anywhere near.
Have somebody speak for them. And Zelensky, he's a puppet. He is definitely a puppet. And he really put his foot in his mouth in that meeting. Obviously, someone told him, get in front of those cameras and make the point for continued war and for continued support and for continued cash. And he tried. But what we find out today, that he had also signed a minerals deal with the UK. So he's double dipping, which is not a surprise, because that's just going on all over the place when it comes to these globalist leaders.
David, I wanted to ask you a similar question. What should the U.S. outlook be regarding the Ukraine-Russia peace talks, security relationship, and just bilateral relationship moving forward? Basically, do you think that the United States should invest in a bilateral relationship with Russia or Ukraine, or do you think that the U.S. can manage both countries simultaneously in this very dire strait that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, it's funny. I would have asked you that question, considering your expertise on Russia, and I learned so much when you were on the show and you were telling me about the deals that were made between Russia and Ukraine in so many years that were not honored. Look, we're in a midst of a realignment. I don't think being in a perpetual Cold War is in America's best interests. I think that I'm sure the globalists would love for Russia to continue to be the villain on the world stage and relive all the Top Gun drama with the Russian MiGs and Tom Cruise, and they would like to do that. But look, we've been partners in space. There's no reason we can't be partners in trade. Europe, I mean, you look with these tariffs that we're doing with Mexico and Canada, with fentanyl pouring across the northern and southern borders. We have no partnership with our traditional partners. Europe would love to see the United States weaker on the world stage. So you know what? Maybe it is time we get along with Russia a little bit. Maybe it's time that we start doing deals on energy. Maybe it's time we start getting along, because look, Russia controls Cuba, supports Iran, supports Venezuela. Imagine what could happen in world peace if United States and Russia could at least say, look, we're always going to be self-interest. Of course, America first, Russia first. I'm sure they both want to make sure that their countries are prioritized in the negotiations with the world. But what we don't want is Russia pairing off with China, pairing off with India, doing this whole BRICS thing, cutting us out of the deal. The United States remains the most powerful country in the world. Why not do deals with Russia? And look, if we're getting along with Russia, that means we're getting along with Ukraine. Because if we're doing deals with Russia, there's no reason for them to go and start taking resources in Ukraine, because guess what? We're doing business together, and they don't want to upset that business relationship. I think the best thing we can do, normalize relations with Russia, I think we tell Ukraine, look, you have a right to sovereignty as well. Russia doesn't have a right to just go and take your country. So there has to be peace, but peace always comes economically. Everybody wants to just have the right to make their citizens' lives better and do business with their partners. And so I really do think if we find a way to do business with Russia and we stop treating them like this Cold War boogeyman, I think the world benefits. And you know what? For Europe, who would love to see us go to World War III and sending troops right on the front lines in Ukraine, almost begging to get NATO involved, you were on your own. I'm sorry. We prop up NATO for long enough. We're not going to let you drag us into a world war. We don't need to be there. And so I think it's about time we start resetting some of the relationships and start partnering up with some of the world leaders. And let's bring peace to the world through economics. Everybody's lives improve when we're all making more money together.
Well said, David. Historically, peace was articulated or planned at the State Department. War was planned and articulated at the Department of Defense or the Pentagon. Now, arguably, both are being litigated publicly on social media. The social media companies like X, Instagram, TikTok, you name it, I think having a massive platform on any of those makes you more influential than diplomats around the world today. So the question is, you and Puppet are obviously very big players on X, especially. You host a lot of these spaces, and you get a lot of very interesting people to come and comment openly about some of these very sensitive topics that we're discussing here today. So the question I have is, how do you see the future of decentralized media and X and spaces impacting both war and peace moving forward?
Oh man, I'll answer that and I'll throw it to Puppet. That is the fundamental, really, like the most important thing that's going to preserve freedom and democracy and liberty around the world is decentralized media and what X has delivered to the world. Now, look, free speech has its risks. You have to hear things that you don't like that might offend you. But the idea about not being able to shut down speech you don't like means you have the power to say things that other people don't like, meaning world leaders. And if you need to question how powerful free speech is, you look at places like Brazil, you look at places like Venezuela, you look at places across Europe, who is shutting down people's ability to get information on X. And so what we do with these X spaces with Mario, we're able to talk to people who are in countries where they're not given the information. We're sitting here being able to provide them with information that they had no access to because their state-run media wasn't giving it to them. It's such a threat to dictators when information can be freely shared. And so decentralized media is going to do the same thing as decentralized currency. Free speech is the cryptocurrency of democracy. And just as you can do transactions financially with a cryptocurrency without it being centralized and controlled by countries, now you can have communications with people, and it's just starting. The people don't even know about these, what they call Web3, and about all these new decentralized media platforms that countries can't shut down. I mean, they'll try, but the idea is speech will save the world from dictators. I honestly believe that. And so I think that is probably the most important. What we're doing on X with spaces and what Elon did, I think we'll be talking about for centuries of that critical moment when Elon took X and gave free speech life again. I think it's going to save the world. It's going to prove to that. But that's my theory.
Well, and he did it in a moment where disinformation became a very potent tool in the info wars, right? Every brainwashing happened through propaganda, real propaganda. Like when we talk about this animosity behind the polarization between different political views, it's all because we've been riled up unconsciously and consciously by those messaging. So how I believe the next challenge will be censorship, because as much as we have platforms like Web3 that are now safe from this type of interference, we still have platforms like the one we're talking to right now, YouTube, that sometimes deplatform certain type of political speech. So we have the tool, but we have also to face the challenges that the potential of this tool brings into. What do you think will be the future of censorship? And I ask you both.
Well, Puppy, you want to take that one first?
Well, I think censorship is, if free speech is the decentralization and is the solution, then censorship is there is the globalist opposition to free speech. They can censor the free speech. And you're seeing this all over the place. You're seeing people going to jail for tweeting things, with, you know, comedians going to jail for tweeting things and making memes. And people are, and, you know, now you got global leaders trying to put people in other countries, you know, and hold them accountable to the things that they say over a social platform that, you know, broadcasts into their to their people. And if we don't get a handle on that kind of censorship, then even these free platforms are not going to do the trick. That's because if you're afraid to make a comment on a free speech platform, what good is the platform? You know, because you're not going to make the comment because you don't want to lose your livelihood or lose your family or disappear or go to jail or whatever they are threatening to do to people. So I think we need the platforms, we need the free speech platforms, and we need them to be as free as possible, unlike some of these censored free, quote unquote, free speech platforms that actually censor, like YouTube and TikTok even. They're taking things down and blocking things from being said. Again, Elon, thank goodness for X, where we can be as free as any other platform out there. But again, with the censorship going on layered on top of even a free platform, it's scary. So I think it's critical that someone like America takes the lead, can bring back free speech fully to our country so that we can show the world that free speech is available and that it is a powerful opportunity for any country to grow and to prosper. And then hopefully we can, through our leadership and our power, we can push people, other countries, in that same direction.
Very well said, guys. I have a final question, a very timely question. Tonight, we have President Trump addressing a joint session of Congress. Obviously, this is his last term. What are you expecting tonight compared to previous joint sessions that he's addressed?
Wow, I think tonight is going. This has been a special administration. Look, in the last 40 plus days, Trump, I think, has done more than Biden was even able to dream about doing in 4 years.
He had a lot of dreams, though, because he slept a lot.
Well, that's true. He dreamed about that. But I think tonight, I think what we're going to see tonight is and you saw this, you guys, you saw after the assassination attempt, after you survived the assassination attempt, he had a different level of focus. He's not, he's trying to really change the world. He believes he's on a mission that's more important than anything else he's ever done. So I think his speech tonight is going to be one that, despite the behavior of the Democrats, which I think is only going to hurt them and make them look bad, which I'm kind of looking forward to, I think people are going to say, wow, that's a different Trump than we've seen. Because remember, most people have only seen the version of Trump that their news has been willing to show them. This joint address, this first time, other than the inauguration, and a lot of Democrats actually liked his inaugural speech. They said, wow, that was actually a lot more even toned than I imagined it would be. I think tonight people are going to walk away from that speech and hear his message about renewing the American dream. And I think people are going to walk away optimistic, and I think people are going to have a different view of Trump than the one that's created in the media. And they're going to see Trump for who he really is. And that's somebody who loves this country, who loves America, and wants the best for it. And I know he's going to really give some emotional moments tonight. I mean, you can expect him to talk about hostages being returned that Biden left in Russian prisons. He's going to talk about men in women's sports and the injuries that occur from that. He's going to talk about fentanyl and the destruction it's doing to the American people, and how Mexico and Canada haven't done their part to stop it. He's going to talk to people about things that affect their lives. And I think at the end of the day, all Americans are going to walk away from his speech tonight feeling like Trump really gets it. And it's going to be a stark contrast from the sleeping commander-in-chief that we just were liberated from.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I will look forward following this new era and how we'll set the Congress on fire tonight, because, you know, President Trump already gave us the best action with his executive orders since its inauguration, but also the best television moment, right? When we think about its performance in many different occasions. So I want to invite everybody to tune in tonight and follow what is happening for America. And thank you again, both Puppet and David. Puppet, you're a very smart puppet, by the way. I wish many other puppet leaders would have your same analysis capabilities. So thank you both, and I hope to have you on Global View soon.
And where can people find you and follow you, guys?
Yeah, so I would love for you guys to go to David Pollack USA on X or any social media platform. And this is really important, guys. We're launching Politically Uncensored. The channel exists now. Puppet, what's our channel on YouTube? Because we really want people to go there and start subscribing.
At Politically Uncensored.
Oh, that's easy enough. So go to @Politically Uncensored on YouTube. Very important, please. Everybody watching go right to @Politically Censored on YouTube. Please subscribe. There's going to be new content coming very, very soon. And follow me, please, David Pollack USA. And of course, @Puppet Carlson. You can follow the plush patriot himself on every social media platform as well. So it's @David Pollack USA, @Puppet Carlson, and we'll be seeing much more of you. Guys, thank you so much for having us on this awesome podcast. And once again, congratulations. This is quickly turning into my favorite new show.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much, both.
Thank you, really. Thanks so much, guys.
We'll talk to you again real soon.